We got a loaner Audi from the dealership. We took ours in to get a recall, and this is the loaner that they gave us. It's a 2021 Audi A5, and there's some pretty cool features that it has. The first thing that I noticed, and probably similar with a lot of people's, as soon as you open the door handle moves up instead of coming out whenever you open the door, and then the window scoots down about 1/8 of an inch just so you don't damage the frameless window. There's a lot of things in the interior that I recognize from the other Audi, the other vehicle that we have at the dealership, like some of the stocks, the positioning of the wheels to adjust different things on the control system, and a lot of the placement of everything is pretty similar. Underneath the armrest here, you've got a wireless charger, and then whenever you set that in there, it'll connect to the multimedia system. You can also turn on Bluetooth and connect to it through there, so you have that Bluetooth connection where you can play music and receive phone calls. The fob is pretty standard Audi fob. It just goes right in this compartment here, like a lot of other cars, and you just start the engine from there with the foot on the brake. A cool feature that this car has that not a lot of cars have is a heated steering wheel. You can turn that on, and then this will start to heat up. Maybe in about 5 minutes, it's warm to the touch, which is pretty comforting. The main control screen here is a touch screen, so you can go through things, and it's pretty responsive. It's a little slow once you hit the button, but it makes a click to acknowledge that you just tapped it pretty quickly. Here's where you can select your drive modes. There's comfort, auto, and dynamic. Dynamic is going to be like sport mode. If I go into dynamic, you see we got apex of a turn right there, and it looks like it's in sport mode. Auto is it's basically going to decide for you which mode it's in, and then comfort is just going to be quiet and smooth accelerations, not very harsh. The shifter is a new thing in this car, and I kind of like the design of it. In this case, this is it being a 2021 A5. It has a dual clutch automatic transmission. If I remember correctly, it's also an 8-speed. So you have sport mode right here, which we go down into drive, and then you go over. Now you're in what I like to call slapstick mode or manual mode, where you can go up to upshift and down to downshift. And then to get back in park, you just click the park button, and then it moves back over, which is kind of cool. Instead of this shifter actually moving its position, what it does is it just moves up and down one click. So if I push in the button and I want to go into neutral, I shift up. The shifter itself didn't move, it just clicked up a position, and if I want to go in reverse, I go up again, and now I'm in reverse. So it's pretty simple, and it's not moving all over the place, so the whole thing takes up less room. And you can always hit the park button, and it goes right back into park. When you're in camera mode, if you swipe over from the bottom, right on that box, you have a bunch of different camera angles. So we can go either to the front here, if you're going to be maneuvering through a tight spot or somewhere like that. You have an all-around camera angle like we saw on that side. There's a bunch of different ultrasonic sensors too, so if you're getting close to an obstacle, it'll show that right here. And then you have a rear view, a rear corner view, and a bunch of different views that you can look through. Like there's two sides, the two sides in the front of the vehicle, two corners in the back of the vehicle. So there's a lot of different camera angles if you need to go through a tight spot and you really need to see what's coming close to your vehicle. This design of climate control I think is really simple. The two main controls are big knobs, so if you just want to change the temperature, you got the knobs right there. And then for the other controls, the other main ones, you have these silver buttons, which can sense if you're touching them and they get bigger, and then to actually adjust them, you bump them down or bump them up. I think overall it's really simple. I like the whole system. And then you've got your other buttons like heated seats, the front defog, rear defog, recirculate, turn it off, the passenger heated seat. And some climate controls have moved everything to the screen, and I think that gets a little complicated because you might need to go into the climate control settings and then everything's sliders. I like having the physical buttons. It makes it simpler and easy to do while you're driving. The steering wheel has a few different buttons to control a few simple things. Like right here we have the heated steering wheel, which by now is getting kind of warm, and I think they've done a good job at keeping the buttons simple. There's not too many of them. You can control the audio level of your radio right here. You have a voice assistant that you can ask to do a few simple things around the car, and then you have a button to accept phone calls. On this side of the steering wheel, you have a few different things to mainly control what's on your gauge cluster screen. If you hit view, then you can switch between a few different views here that will tell you different things. So if you're really curious about what your fuel level is, how many miles you have left, you can go to that view, or if you want to switch to some information like date, time, then you can go to that, and you can switch between a bunch of different ones that are there. You have paddle shifters right here that are connected to the steering wheel and not the stock. So as you move the steering wheel, it moves the paddles along with it. These will only work if you're in sport mode, so if I were to go down into drive and over into sport, then it activates. Whenever you're in sport mode, you can either go with these paddle shifters to shift up and down, or you can use this to downshift or upshift. The cruise control stock is right below the turn signal stock, and it's the same location that Audi has had it in for quite a while, and really all the controls on it are the same. If you needed to defrost your mirrors, the heated mirror setting is right down here where you turn it right there, and then right beside that is where it folds in the mirrors. If I do that, they'll fold in. In the Home tab, you have a bunch of different apps that control different things on the vehicle. So there's different tabs here. I think one of the most common ones that I'll use is Vehicle. You have your Drive Select, which we were just controlling with these buttons down here, or you can change it here to Comfort, Dynamic, or Auto. And then Air Conditioning, Efficiency, Driver's Assist. This would be like Cruise Control, Adaptive Cruise Control. And then like light and visibility, you can control how bright the lights are whenever it gets dark outside. You have those interior lights. You can control the brightness right here, or your exterior lights. You can control different things right there. So there's lots of things you can change from inside this screen here. This knob here controls a few things with the multimedia system, like phone audio. You have volume, which is just controlled by spinning the outside. You can press and hold that to turn the main screen on and off. And then you can move it side to side to seek and skip through songs or tracks. You have climate vents and climate control in the rear, so the rear passengers can select what temperature they want back there, although there's not much room in the back seats. Now, the back seats in this is another story. They are small, especially for someone who's a little bit taller like myself. You don't have much room in there. Now, although I might have a little bit of leg room, I have no headroom. In fact, my head is hitting the ceiling. So you have climate controls back here, which is nice. The seats aren't too bad. If someone had their seat a little bit farther back, I wouldn't have much leg room, but the headroom really isn't great at all. One thing that is a little disappointing is you have the Quattro all-wheel drive system with this A5, which is a great all-wheel drive system, but this is really low to the ground, so you don't have that much ground clearance. So it doesn't perform very well in the snow because a lot of that snow is going to get packed underneath there. So if you're driving in steep snow, like right now we have about 10 to 12 inches of snow, and it doesn't do very well on that unless you have really good plowed snow. Now, this car is a completely different animal. This is a 1997 Audi A4, and this is a tank in the snow. It does really well. I was just driving it through the 12-inch snow. In fact, you can see the path that it left behind. It was pushing snow in the front. No problem at all. And that's something that's different about the older car. Although it's also low to the ground, it has a little bit more ground clearance, but it definitely performs a lot better in the snow. We'll pop the hood here. Under the hood is a 2.0T engine, which is a 2-liter turbocharged engine, 4-cylinder. So it's an engine that Audi has used for quite a while, but also isn't known for being that great of an engine. The 2.0T does have some problems. I'm not sure what they've changed coming up to this year, but the engine looks pretty similar to some of the older ones. We'll pull the beauty cover off. One thing I don't like that they've done on the 2.0T engines, which they've been making for a while, is these plastic intake manifolds. One trend that I've been seeing a little bit more, which is really good to see, is that here's the oil filter cartridge, and that's right on top of the engine. It's really easy to access, and that's a thing I think they should keep doing on more and more engines. On the back, you've got a physical button to open the trunk, which is some things that not all new cars have, and I think it's something they all should have. Now, whenever you hit the button, it opens up by itself, and you're greeted with a lot of room in the trunk. And it just about feels like a hatchback back here. And this piece right here, if you needed to remove that, it just pulls right out. And when you fold the seats down, you have even more room. With the seats down, you've certainly got a lot of space in the back. And to close the trunk, you can either do that manually or you can hit the trunk close button and it'll do it by itself. All in all, I think this is a pretty interesting car and I think it's got a lot of cool features.